When Gripen ruled the Dubai sky, and the F-35J-20 and Su-35 could only watch. The desert sun hung low over Dubai, painting the endless sand in shades of amber and gold, as Captain Maya Sandstrom adjusted her helmet inside the cramped cockpit of her Swedish Gripen fighter jet. It was 7:15 p.m., and the International Airshow had drawn the world's most advanced aircraft to the glittering city, but Maya felt the weight of something far more serious than a simple demonstration. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced precision, while her co-pilot's voice crackled through the radio with last-minute checks. The sky above the Persian Gulf shimmered with heat, and somewhere out there, pilots from America, China, and Russia were preparing their own magnificent machines for what everyone believed would be just another showcase of aerial prowess. But Maya knew better, and a knot in her stomach tightened as she thought about the intelligence briefing she'd received just 2 hours ago. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. The mission had changed everything. What started as a routine air show had transformed into something far more dangerous when satellite imagery revealed an unidentified threat approaching Dubai's airspace, something that could trigger an international incident if not handled with absolute precision. Maya's commander had been cleared during the emergency briefing, his weathered face grave as he explained that someone needed to intercept and identify the unknown aircraft without escalating tensions between the superpowers gathered in the city below. The Americans had their new F-35s, sleek and invisible to radar, their pilots confident and ready. The Chinese had brought their J-20s, angular and aggressive, their presence a statement of rising power. The Russians had deployed their Su-35s, heavy and intimidating, their veteran pilots eager to prove their superiority. But the commander had chosen Maya and her small, nimble Gripen for this delicate task, and she understood why. Sometimes the biggest solution wasn't the biggest plane. Tower, this is Gripen 1, requesting immediate clearance for unscheduled departure. Maya spoke in her radio, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The air traffic controller hesitated, clearly confused by the sudden change in schedule, but Maya's priority codes cut through the bureaucracy like a hot knife through butter. Within seconds, she was rolling down the runway, the Gripen's engine roaring to life beneath her, and the glittering towers of Dubai became a blur as she climbed sharply into the darkening sky. The other pilots watched from their cockpits and ground positions, confusion evident even through their visors and helmets. Major Rick Thompson, the American F-35 pilot, immediately radioed his command, asking permission to follow, suspicion coloring his southern drawl. Colonel Zhao Wei in his J-20 did the same, his calm Mandarin floating over the international frequency. Lieutenant Sergei Volkov, the Russian in the massive Su-35, simply started his engines without asking, his reputation for bending rules well earned over 2 decades of flying. Maya pushed the Gripen higher, breaking through a thin layer of clouds as the sun finally dipped below the horizon, and her radar screen suddenly blazed with the contact she'd been sent to find. The unknown aircraft was moving fast, too fast for a commercial plane, and its transponder was either malfunctioned or deliberately turned off. Her pulse quickened as she adjusted her heading, the Gripen responding to her touch like an extension of her own body, and she could hear the other pilots now demanding answers over the radio, their voices overlapping in 3 different languages. This is Gripen 1. I have visual range in 30 seconds. All aircraft maintain current positions, she ordered, her authority surprising even herself. But Major Thompson wasn't having it, his F-35 already climbing to intercept, and Colonel Zhao wasn't far behind, the competitive fire between these warriors impossible to contain. Lieutenant Volkov laughed darkly over the radio, his thick accent making his challenge clear. Little Swedish girl thinks she can handle this alone? The word stung, but Maya had no time for ego as the unknown aircraft suddenly appeared on her visual display, and what she saw made her blood run cold. It wasn't a military threat at all, but a small civilian jet spiraling downward in obvious distress, smoke trailing from one engine as it plummeted toward the Persian Gulf below. The pilot inside was clearly struggling to maintain control, the plane jerking left and right in desperate attempts to stabilize, and Maya realized instantly that if this aircraft crashed into the water near Dubai's crowded coastline, the explosion could kill dozens of innocent people on the beaches below. She had maybe 90 seconds to act, and the other fighters, built for combat and speed, were too heavy and too fast to attempt what needed to be done. The Gripen, however, was different, smaller, more agile, designed for exactly this kind of precision flying. "Tower, I'm going in to assist," Maya announced, already diving toward the stricken aircraft, ignoring the protests that immediately flooded her radio. Major Thompson shouted that she was crazy, that she should let rescue helicopters handle it, but they were 20 minutes away, and the civilian jet had maybe 2 minutes before it hit the water. Colonel Zhao's voice cut in, surprisingly supportive, telling her to be careful, his earlier competitiveness replaced by professional respect. Even Lieutenant Volkov went silent, and Maya imagined the grizzled Russian pilot watching her dive with something like admiration. She brought the Gripen alongside the falling civilian jet, so close she could see the terrified pilot inside, a young man barely older than her own brother, his eyes wide with panic as he fought controls that no longer responded. Maya's training took over, her voice calm and clear as she radioed directly to the civilian pilot, talking him through every step, telling him to cut power to the damaged engine, to level his wings, to trust her guidance. The Persian Gulf rushed up to meet them both, the water dark and unforgiving in the fading light, and Maya matched the civilian jet's descent exactly, her Gripen dancing on the edge of control as she used her own aircraft to create a visual reference point for the panicked pilot to follow. 30 seconds left, and the civilian jet began to level out, the pilot following her instructions with desperate precision, his plane still trailing smoke, but no longer spinning towards certain death. 20 seconds, and Maya pulled up slightly, showing him the angle he needed to maintain, her own aircraft trembling with the strain of such slow, controlled flight. 10 seconds, and she saw his landing gear deploy, a good sign that he was thinking clearly now, preparing for the water landing that was now his only option. 5 seconds, and Maya pulled hard to the right, giving him space, her heart in her throat, as the civilian jet touched the water with a tremendous splash, skipping once, twice, then settling into a surprisingly controlled water, landing just offshore from an empty stretch of beach. Emergency boats were already racing toward the downed aircraft as Maya climbed back to altitude, her hands shaking now that the immediate danger had passed, and the radio exploded with voices congratulating her, disbelief and respect mingling in equal measure. Major Thompson was laughing, all his earlier skepticism gone, saying that was the finest flying he'd seen in 20 years. Colonel Zhao offered his compliments in formal Mandarin, then switched to English to make sure she understood his sincerity. Lieutenant Volkov's voice came last, gruff but genuine. "Little Swedish girl has steel wings after all." Maya smiled despite her exhaustion, watching as rescue crews pulled the civilian pilot from his sinking jet, alive and waving, and she finally allowed herself to breathe as she turned her Gripen back toward Dubai's glittering lights. The air show would go on tomorrow, and the F-35s, J-20s, and Su-35s would perform their impressive routines for the crowds below, but tonight the sky belonged to something different. Not the biggest or the fastest or the most expensive machine, but the one flown by a pilot who understood that true strength sometimes meant precision over power and courage over competition.